Start recording. Okay. Hi, my name is RT Brown. I'm with the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. This is the first BDCC Business Resiliency Programs webinar of 2021. Happy New Year to everyone. It's good to see familiar faces. It's the 18th session, if I have my counting's right, of the program's webinars. We started these back in March of 2020. The purpose of these is to help you folks get access to as up-to-date, as much as we can, up-to-date information about what's been developing in terms of COVID mitigation relief, as well as some useful best practices for business-related concerns, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end of this session. We've mapped out the first quarter's topics for these webinars. We're going to be doing these every other week on Thursdays at 2:15. So of course we'll cover, any COVID-related programmatic information, but we'll also get into some nuts and bolts business related conversations, which range from things like QuickBooks to Excel, things to help you run your business. So as I mentioned, we are trying to keep up with the best practices around security with webinars. So we have asked that people register. When you register, it's for the whole series. You don't have to register for every single session. So it's one registration, and that should, after every session thereafter, when you launch the meeting, as long as you've logged into Zoom, you'll be able to gain access to the meeting. Not to put up a barrier, but just to make sure that everybody's in a secure and safe environment. We thought that it was best to enable registrations. I want to thank folks for joining. I think I'm still speechless. I was glued to the news last night, and it just coming into the session, I was thinking of our partners who work for the federal delegation, Chris and Erica, Fauna and Rebecca, and I believe they're with us today. I see Erica and Chris on my screen. And as always, we like to lean to them to get up-to-date information, and not to digress, but if I could lean to you for not only up-to-date information, but if you could maybe take a minute to share how our senators are doing, and if there's any thoughts that you can share on that, we'd really appreciate it. I don't have an order in mind. I see Chris. He's up at the top. So Chris, if you want to.
Yeah. Thank you, RT. I appreciate the well wishes from you and from everybody in Vermont who's expressed concern about the well-being of the delegation and our staffs. I've worked for Senator Leahy for 18 years. I spent 9 of those in Washington, working in the buildings that were attacked yesterday. And been through a lot in those times, chemical and biological agents put in the building and planes threatening to crash into them. And yesterday really surpassed all of that and was horrifying, I think, to anybody who cares about our democracy, to see a visual attack on like the symbol of that democracy and the electoral college process, that is a hallmark of kind of a peaceful transfer of power and an attempt to subvert that with a coup. Senator Leahy is doing well. I think he and the other members that were in the Senate debating the objections were quickly moved to a safe space in the Capitol Visitor Center. And once things were cleared, that, his resolve was stronger than ever to get right back to work. I think feels very passionately that the work of Congress cannot be disrupted by those that wish to take matters into their own hands by violence and destruction. And we are, I think, sad and heartbroken in many ways today, and outraged at what happened, and the failure of a really well-qualified police force to protect both the Capitol and our members. It's impossible to look at yesterday without also reflecting on how people of color in our country have been treated by law enforcement, and how folks protesting at the Capitol were treated earlier this year. But to focus on Senator Leahy and our team, our resolve is strong. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We are still amidst a global pandemic and an economy that is in shambles, and we're going to have to figure out a way to bottle up this rage and manage that and our feelings, at the same time carrying on the work that needs to happen to help our country recover from the pandemic. So I really appreciate it. We've been getting so many calls today that they've been spilling over to all of our staff, and to hear from Vermonters today has really lifted everybody's spirits. So appreciate you taking a moment to address that, RT.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Erica, you're just below Chris.
Thanks, RT. I'm Erica Campbell with Senator Sanders' office. And Chris, I think you said it extremely well. This is incredibly troubling times. It's upsetting. It's sad. The Senator Sanders is, he is safe. He came back actually today for a brief respite from the Capitol, and I imagine he will be headed back at some point soon. And there's lots of work to do. As Chris said, we still are in COVID. We still have there's so much. I've slept very little this week. It's a crazy week, and my mind is quite frazzled myself. So I apologize. I'm not being very articulate.
No, I can't. I honestly I can't imagine. So I want to thank you both for being here.
Yeah. And Chris just said it so well. So I won't go into more, but I just, in terms of the small business pieces, last week, I know Chris and Fauna and Rebecca and I were all sort of diving in to parts, to the specific language of the bill. We got the guidance last night. I personally haven't really had a chance today to dive into it very much. I imagine, Chris, maybe you've had a little bit more of a chance. I know Rebecca, our Fauna was from Congressman Welch's office, I'm not sure if she's going to be able to join in time. She was on a call with the congressman just moments ago. So Chris, I'm not sure if RT, if you wanted us to go into some detail, at least a high level summary.
Yeah, that would be that was my hope. I was hoping we could transition into that. I've got this document in front of me, HR 133 summary document. So if you could touch on some highlights, and if I can supplement, I certainly will, based on my take on that document as well. So that'd be great.
I'll hop in and then hand it over to Erica. Just bringing up my summary. I did pop in the chat. So Congress passed this bill right before the holidays. The IRS was required, or the Treasury and small business were required to publish guidelines on it within 10 days of enactment. President Trump chose to wait a week to sign it. So today, last night, as Erica mentioned, was really the first day that it was available for that Small Business Administration had to put it out. So that to be clear, we're talking about a second round of PPP for businesses that had lost 25% of their revenue from between 2019 and 2020. You just have to demonstrate that in one quarter. If you can't demonstrate that in one quarter alone, you can compare your 2020 revenues to your 2019. I think the idea here is really to make up for some of the issues in fraud, businesses that got first round PPP loans that really did not need them, and trying to get aid to those most at risk. There are a number of changes in terms of who is eligible and what is eligible. Sole proprietors will continue to be eligible. The program was expanded to 501c6 organizations as long as lobbying is not the primary purpose of their existence. Things that these dollars could be used on, in addition to all the things previously, like payroll. It can be used to cover operating expenditures, things like software, human resources needs, property damage costs. If we didn't have any riots here in Vermont, but had you had your property damage, that could be covered, or things not covered by insurance. If you're a restaurant, perishable goods and things that you need to run your business, things like that are eligible to be covered. And so there's this increase of eligibility. The calculation is the same. By and large, it's 2.5 times monthly payroll. If you are a food business or hospitality business with a certain NAICS code, you will get 3.5 times monthly payroll. The program should be opening soon, run the same way. You will apply directly through your bank, and you will have the same way that Congress extended the timeline for businesses to be able to choose how long they wanted to use funds before asking for their forgiveness. You can choose anywhere from 8 weeks to up to 24 weeks after the loan was originated from your bank. There are some important changes that come for forgiveness of first round loans for those that are under $150,000, and really looking to streamline that process. And I could get into more details, but that's kind of the high level overview. SBA has started to do webinars on this program. If you haven't participated in one that they've done, or one that they've done in conjunction with the Vermont Agency of Commerce, can't recommend those enough. They really do try and get into the specifics. As the administering entity, we've been deferring a lot of questions to them, but I'm going to pause there and hand it over to Erica to touch on things that I may have missed, or to touch about portions of the EIDL program that changed between what happened last year for small businesses that were looking for that $10,000 grant and didn't get it. So Erica, if you want to take over, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I can jump in. I'm trying to figure out exactly what you may have missed. I'm not sure if you mentioned the shuttered live venues. That will be actually a different program than the PPP. So shuttered live venues, theaters, and cultural institutions. It will be an SBA grant, and I'm not exactly sure if Chris, if you have any more information, but that program has not officially rolled out yet, but hopefully it will soon. There will also be some debt relief on SBA programs, I think 7A loans, as well as, I can't remember what the micro lending program is called. But there will be a little bit of debt relief, some payments made through those programs. There also will be some set aside for CDFIs, and they are, they're really trying to do a little bit of a better job this round of making sure some of the really smaller businesses do have access, like up, 10 employees or fewer do have more access. So more set asides for those programs, or for those smaller businesses, excuse me. And also just wanted to, IDLE, there will be more money for these IDLE advances. As you probably all know, it was really disappointing. A lot of the small businesses with fewer than 10 employees last time didn't get the full $10,000 as it had originally stated and intended in the CARES Act. And now it is saying that it will be that full 10,000. I think it's not clear to me if that's for exactly what that looks like, and I haven't been able to see that in the find that in the guidance yet. So will that be past IDLE grants, for example, or if you had an IDLE loan, you only got 4,000 because you have 4 employees, are you going to get that other 6,000 from your past loan? So I'm hoping that's the case. And Chris, please jump in if you or anybody happens to know. Yes, Chris is saying yes, you can apply for this round if you received one. You will. Okay, that's good. That's great. Just want to really quickly mention about a couple things about the tax incentives as well, because there were some positive changes in this round. So there's an extension and expansion of the employee retention tax credit. You're also allowed to take both a PPP loan and an employee retention tax credit this time. You weren't allowed to take both, but you had to choose. So that's great. Clarification that forgiven PPP loans will not be included in taxable income. I think Chris may have mentioned that. And clarification that expenses paid with forgiven PPP loans are tax deductible, backdated to the CARES Act. So those are just a few pieces that, again, there's Chris Delia and some others yesterday did a great presentation on some of the nitty gritty of this. Hopefully that RT, you can make that available.
Sure.
If folks don't have that, there's going to be, I'm sure Darcy Carter is fabulous, and I'm sure her and her office will be doing regular webinars as well.
Yeah.
And the nitty gritty once the details do come out. But, just contacting your lenders now as they start to get the information, just getting, queuing up. Again, with those small business set asides, I think we won't see that quick. And then the requirement of 25%. Last time it was like, there was no requirement that you had to show a loss of revenue really. So, with that now, I think, we won't see, this money won't fly out the door like that very first round. One other little piece I wanted to mention is there is supposed to be some set asides for low income communities, especially for the new IDLE advances. And I'm not quite sure how they're going to be classifying that. So that's just something on our list that we want to make sure we look into and see how it will impact Vermont.
Great. So you'd mentioned the shuttered venue operators grant program. I just want to clarify, because we actually have a shuttered venue operator with us today. Hi, Robin. Good to see you. So that will be administered by the SBA, correct? Okay.
I wish Fauna was on, because Fauna, I know Congressman Welch's office he was a major advocate for a standalone bill for those types of venues, and I think that they're pretty familiar with the details. Chris,
okay.
do you know? I'm not really familiar with.
So the more info to come on the shuttered venues program. Because it's a new program, Congress gave SBA a little bit more time to develop the rules and regulations of how it's going to work. It's going to have a tiered eligibility based on how much revenue you lost. I think we gave them 3 weeks after passage of the enactment of the bill to put out the first guidelines. It will be a program directly applicable to SBA for via a grant application. And I think one of the keys is it's an either or situation. So we've been hearing from some entities in Vermont that, they've been waiting, should they apply for a PPP loan or should they apply for shuttered venues? If you meet all the criteria of shuttered venues, then that's where you should go because you can't do both.
Great. All right. So Robin, I think we will help you access some of that information once it becomes available if we can.
Yeah, I'm on I'm tied in with the NEVA organization.
Okay.
So I get pretty much real time everything. We're really, what we're expecting right now is April 1st for the guidelines or the beginning window for applying. And then it's like, yeah, so I've got a pretty good resource for
Great.
info.
Great. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Yeah, so, and there's a question, any updates on the automatic forgiveness of PPP below the threshold we spent? I won't read the whole thing because I know y'all can read. But I wonder if that's related to a section that has very little information, at least in the document that I have. It's section 341, duplication requirements for economic injury disaster loan recipients. And the bullet is permits certain idle borrowers to also apply for PPP loans. So I'm not sure if that's related at all to this question.
Yeah, so first off, one of the things that did change, and I see a question both from Annie and Linda here, for the way this was originally working was that there was a desire not to have folks double dip in kind of conceptually, so that if you had an EIDL and you got $10,000 in grant from that, your PPP forgiveness would be reduced by $10,000. Congress changed that here. And so if you have not yet applied for forgiveness, you should not have to pay back that EIDL advance that you received. So that's kind of step one. For those that did give it back, I don't know, Annie, if that's your situation. I'm not sure yet how we're going to fix that, because we know that there were some folks that did have small balances. Maybe they received $1,000 or $2,000, and just to be done with it, they paid it back and kind of said we're clear. So I'm not sure how or if we will be able to get those folks their money back. So that's question one, and then I'm going to drop something in the chat. Is the bullet that I have on the streamlined forgiveness, and so this is what I have as of now, and I hope that's helpful. I think this is where we're going to be getting more info from SBA in the coming days about entities in your situation. If you've got a loan under 150, well, what to be able to expect. The bankers are pretty plugged into this, so staying in touch with your lender, so banker or credit union, I guess, as the next couple weeks unfold is probably really key, because it's those the bankers and credit unions that determine the forgiveness.
Okay. Erica, you touched on some of the tax implications. So apologies if you mentioned this, but it's also a change that and I'm just going to read here, that the provision clarifies that gross income does not include any amount that would otherwise arise from the forgiveness of a Paycheck Protection Program loan. That's pretty significant, right? So if somebody received forgiveness, that doesn't add on to their gross income, correct? Okay, I know there was concern around that, but I just want to make that point that it doesn't, the forgiveness of a loan doesn't somehow up a business's gross income. Okay. Chris already mentioned that there's some expanded eligible expenses. Some of those include software, cloud computing, human resource and accounting needs. Those can be kind of broad, but I would imagine the the interim final rule that Chris posted in the chat. We'll get into more details. There's supposed to be a simplified application process for loans under 150,000. It is still recommended, and I think this is important because, you know, this application is, we're all familiar with the certifications. So you're making certifications about the state of your business and the nature of your business and the profits and the losses associated with your business. But borrowers are required to retain relevant records related to employment for 4 years and other records for 3 years. So, you know, you got to make sure that your record keeping is in order, and that sounds like it might be a good topic for one of these sessions, as I mentioned earlier. So, at a high level, if you received a PPP loan, and whether or not you've expended that loan or used it or you haven't, you can go back for what they're calling the second draw loan. So you are eligible. Chris mentioned that it's the same calculus. It's 2.5 times the sum of average monthly payroll costs. But one change, which is important, is if your business uses the NAICS code 72, which is accommodation and food services, you can be eligible for up to 3.5 times average monthly payroll costs. And I know that certainly applies to some folks here in today's meeting. I'm going through my notes now too. 501c6s, I think that was mentioned already. And I think all the other highlighted items that I have in my notes have been touched on by either Erica or Chris. I'm going to look to my chat to see if there's anything. Will agriculture be allowed for PPP? A question by Susan McMahon.
Yes. Yeah. And actually there were some improvements. I would say improvements for that. They're going to be looking at gross income. And I think that will help some of the sole proprietor farms. But there's a whole few paragraphs on how farms will be eligible, and also, you know, farm credits were called out very explicitly this time. I think originally in the very first PPP, it was unclear whether they could be lenders, and they were, but it was very explicitly called out that they could be lenders this time. So yes, on farms. There was a question I just dumped something in from, I pasted something in from there was something on nonprofits, and it basically just says that it's gross receipts under, you know, how you would normally classify that for a nonprofit. Somebody also just asked about PUA. Will this be continuous, or does it? Yeah, good question. I don't know if USDOL has given real clarity yet about that, and how that will, if there will be some kind of break there, and for claimants. And I think Vermont DOL was very much hoping that people could just be sort of continuous, as long as, you know, that they were still eligible, that they could continue on with their PUA, and they would be getting that $300, of course, and instead of $600 as was original. But that's certainly something, and might very much help some of those really small sole proprietor businesses that need to have some income and don't have any from their business coming in. So Vermont PUA restarted yesterday. Thank you, Robin. I have not been very up to speed with that.
Yeah, the language that I'm seeing is increases the number of weeks of benefits an individual may claim from 39 to 50. But I guess that doesn't operationally explain how they would do it. So great. Thank you, Robin, for that.
Could I add one on one of the tax credits for paid leave? So there was a provision in one of the pre-CARES Act bills we passed using the acronym called FICRA, Families First Relief Bill, where employers were given a tax credit if an employee needed to take leave due to COVID exposure or caring for a COVID individual. Effectively, the government would compensate a small business via a tax credit for that leave time. And the tax credit was continued for the next 3 months, but the requirement that an employer provide that time off was not. So, I don't have the rationale for why it happened this way. We certainly heard from some businesses over the course of the year, construction firms and others, where folks triggered a 2-week quarantine by traveling to a red county and then coming back and being forced to stay at home, and employers had to continue to pay them, which was how the program was designed. Some folks, I think, there were some employers that felt that their employees were gaming the system. This removes the requirement that employer pay that benefit, but if you want to do the right thing, you will be compensated. It is only usable once or 80 hours per employee. So if an employee has already had to use that benefit and you have claimed a credit for that time, you will not be able to reclaim it for the same employee. And the same is true if that employee moves to a new job. They will not be able to claim it multiple. It kind of follows the individual.
Okay. Great. All right, I'm not seeing other questions at the moment. I think I'm going to move on with some of the notes.
Looked like Michelle had her hand up with a question.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if we could speak or only chat. Just a specific question. There's so many programs, it's hard to know what's the right one in the right place. So if I had a client in my office who tested positive, so I had to close my business for a week until I got tested and could resume. So that was my question about the PUA. I used the PUA early on in COVID and then went back to work and didn't claim anymore. Can that week of lost income be covered under PUA? Or is that something that I don't know, like the ethics of that. Or is it something that I should be looking at to roll in if I need another PPP?
I mean, with PUA, you can file, I mean, if you're in the system as a claimant, you can, I think there's some level of retroactive payments you can get. But I think you sort of have to be filing kind of weekly, whether you don't get any, whether you don't, whether you get a non-payment that week or not. So
no, this was just recently, so I would file
very recently.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes. So even if you maybe had PUA in the beginning and you haven't filed for a long time, if it's recent like that, yeah, you can absolutely try to put your information in and file again. And it'll be easier because you already sort of know the ropes of that system, I'd imagine.
No
Yeah.
problem doing it. I just wanted to kind of check on the
Well, with
ethics of it,
yeah.
and because it's possible I see 20 people a day in my office, so it's possible this will happen several times where I'll have to take a week off of my practice. So I just want to see where that fits into the system.
Well, yeah, I think it's you can apply for, you can submit your claim for PUA on and off. I think that's fine. I think it's always been some gray area with PPP and PUA and sort of how that works. And
right. No, yeah.
There certainly actually really wasn't clear guidance that said you absolutely can't do both. So there was a lot of gray area there. And there certainly wasn't anything that said 100% that you couldn't do both, especially I think if you're using that as your business owner and you're doing the PUA sort of for your lost income, but you're doing the PPP more for your employees. And I think that was the way a lot of people kind of reconciled it in their mind.
Great, thank you. We have a question that came in. For a nonprofit, what are included in gross receipts? Is that program fees, donation, grants, all of it? And the question is coming from Pam. It's my understanding usually gross receipts means gross sales or revenue, so it would be all of it. I would encourage you to speak with, if you have an accountant, that you verify that with your accountant, though, just to be sure. And if you don't have an accountant, please reach out to me directly. I'll put my name in the chat or my email in the chat, and I can continue that discussion with you offline. Okay, I think that's it. Gabriel, I think we addressed that other one that came in. Thank you for that message, though. Okay, let's see, I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. I want to go over just a couple of, just to give folks some perspective on how much these programs were used leading up to this point. So 806 businesses in the Wyndham region received almost 28 million in the Paycheck Protection Program, and those were under 150,000. Those firms, the folks here today, employ 4,171 people. So that is a lot. 96 additional firms received larger PPP loans ranging from 150 to 5 million, and those firms employ 5,159 people. So I bring this up because many of the firms that are in our region are small, and you folks represent those people, and you employ yourself and maybe one or two other people. So these programs do have a lot of impact. We, as an organization here at the BDCC, just wrapped up a program called the Restart Vermont Technical Assistance Program, or REVTA. 143 Wyndham region-based businesses accessed that program. We believe, as these programs have been funded once again, that program will also be funded. We don't have any details, so I can't dig into that. So that's for future discussion, as well as the CDBG-CV sole proprietor program. We don't have details on that as well, but we expect that it will also be rolled out for another round. So future discussion on those. Upcoming topics for these sessions. Today we're talking about PPP and other COVID mitigation relief resources. Next session on the 21st, we are devoting this session to some very targeted outreach to Black, Indigenous, and peoples of color, women-owned businesses, and underrepresented businesses to help folks understand how to access area technical assistance resources, as well as access to capital. So it's, again, it's directed outreach to some constituents in the southeastern Vermont region that we feel like we have not done a great job at reaching out to. So it's one of many ways in which we are being self-reflective and being very deliberate about outreach to communities that we haven't potentially served that well in the past. And then every other week, again, I scheduled these out for the first quarter. We're going to touch on The first one in February, some insurance considerations for small businesses. Then we're going to touch on some Excel issues to help people understand how to better use Excel. Early March, we're going to have an Ask the Expert session. So we'll have an attorney or several attorneys, accountants, and maybe an insurance representative to help people get answers to just those little nagging questions that you might have, like, well, how do I do this? So this will be an opportunity to just come in and ask a question and go on your way. And then end of March, we're going to focus on e-commerce and online sales. And then on March the 30th, I'm putting a stake in the ground because that is our anniversary of these sessions. It's an odd thing, but it was a year ago in March that we stood up our first one of these sessions. So I thought it would be appropriate to I don't know what the form of that session will be yet, but I wanted to put the stake in the ground. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us. I missed saying my goodbye to Erica, but again, very, very much appreciate all you do and taking the time to be with us here in Southern Vermont. Thank you. For everyone else, I said I would put my email in the chat, and I'm going to do that right now. If you have any questions or there's something I didn't really touch on or address, please reach out and I will endeavor to get an answer to that question. I'm going to take a quick look around at other BDCC colleagues of mine to see if there's anything I missed that perhaps you want to jump in and contribute. Gabriel Sister worked super hard on the REPTA program. Jennifer Strompson is our program director who just has her fingers in every single thing under the sun. So I'm looking at you, wondering if there's anything you might want to add to the discussion today. All right. Well,
I mean, you know, looking to see what's going to come next. You know, we're in a position right now, kind of like what we were in 10 months ago. You know, where we're facing probably increasing lockdown, economic lockdown. So I think we just, you know, remains to be seen what else is going to come out. I want people to watch this space closely, watch our website, watch the ACCD websites, and stay in touch because I think we've all gotten better and better at the state, and all of us have gotten better at, you know, communicating about relief, administering relief. And the thing that has broken my heart over and over again is the times when we've encountered a business, you know, that missed an opportunity that would have been like a huge help. And you know, we never know what's going to come next. So I just don't want anyone to miss out on whatever relief comes next or whatever adjustments to the current relief, you know, to PPP. I know it's tedious and painful to have to go through all this detail, but that change in your taxes or that little bit of forgiveness is going to, you know, help. So reach out for help, pay attention to the space. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks, Jen. There's a set of workshops coming up that's being hosted by our Southern Vermont Economy Project. I'm going to post the link to that page on our website here, but it's storytelling with fish, and businesses are welcome to join that. Typically, so the Southern Vermont Economy Project has a focus on nonprofits and municipalities, but I know this one is also open to businesses, and you know, we've seen Fish do some great things with storytelling as well as in the REPTA program, helping businesses tell their story. So it might be a valuable resource for you. Well, with that, it's 3 o'clock. I'm inclined to not take up anyone's valuable time any more than I already have. I think it's time to bring the first session of this series of 2021 to a close. Please feel free to reach out, as Jennifer said, and it's great to see familiar faces and names. Take care.